What's going on, YouTube? It's the Bushy Beard, and I'm back, and I'm bushier than ever. And right now, we got that chapter. I was about to say that. The Cody Legabukov case. I butchered that name. But this is his newest one. It came out today. I am excited for it. I hope you guys are excited for it. Today, when I'm reacting to it, it'll come out in a few days. Grab your popcorn, get ready, and let's go on an adventure. If this is your first time here, welcome. I appreciate each and every one of y'all that watch these videos. It means the world to me. If you would like, please do subscribe and turn on bell notifications. And without further ado, let's get into this. I should do, so let's get into that chapter.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this whole video, it's been a while, it's been maybe even too long, some might say, since we have been to Canada. Every time I cover a story from there, it's always really weird, and this is just, it's no exception. Throw another one on the pile. Mr. Legabukov is quite the guy. Exceptional in too many negative traits to mention. This case has many links.
Sorry, you guys, I have to read one thing real quick.
To one I talked about briefly before, like a long time ago. It's not even on the channel anymore. The Highway of Tears. I've been raging to cover that one again. And like I said, this has many links to it. There's a few tears in this one, but definitely none for old Cody Leggy. So let's give it a go.
Sorry, y'all. We're good now. Okay.
Let's set the scene. And what a scene.
It was work stuff, sorry.
It is to set. The city of Prince George lies in the heart of British Columbia. That wild and kinda serial killery place. Goddamn, bit worrying. Prince George is home to about 75,000 people. And apparently, according to some people talking about the town on like Reddit, it's quite rednecky. Make of that what you will. But it's affordable, it's wild, you got hunting, fishing, quad biking, and a lot of forest. Though its crime rate, as of recent years, has been a bit uppity. And that's just in recent years, so whoa boy, right? The story I'm talking about isn't that recent, so they've been like outdoing themselves since then. They're enhancing themselves. They thought serial killers? It's rookie numbers.
Wow.
In 2020, it was ranked the 19th most dangerous city in Canada. It got a medal for participating, but now it's going for gold. Though it's not the city of PG. That's sure as shit. It ain't PG that you gotta be trembling, in your boots about. It's the road. And much like the novel of the same name, it's dangerous. So dangerous, it's called the Highway of Tears. Beginning in the south end of Prince George is Highway 16. It slithers and snakes through remote, and I mean somewhere that's too isolated even for Bigfoot, countryside. What you have to...
His humor is second to none, really. It's so... He finds a way to weave in little things like it's so desolate that even Bigfoot wouldn't be there, and something that's so like serious and disgusting. You know what I mean?
To have a go at there is essentially this. It journeys through wild country with great relish before reluctantly entering civilization. If I'm being generous, at Prince Rupert, a little seaport host to less than 15,000 people. It's over 700 kilometers, 450 miles, of pure grade A Canadian
crazy.
wilderness.
Beautiful sights, though, it looks like.
And when the cat's away, and by cats I mean cops, the mice will play. And by mice I mean sickos. Over the last 50 years, depending on which criteria you use,
LGBTQIA2S+. That's a lot of letters. I know the LGBTQ. I don't know the other Q. I don't know what I stands for. I know what A stands for, I think. But I don't know what 2 and S is, or plus. So, yeah.
the number of
Don't
women,
know.
primarily First Nations, who have disappeared along that lonely highway ranges from a dozen to possibly almost 100.
Jeez.
No one really knows for sure. I personally would probably kind of point the finger towards the higher end, because the police simply do not give a shit. As I said, I briefly touched on this topic before. It's a big one, and one I will certainly be revisiting. So, I won't delve too greedily or too deep, mining for misery. We'll get back to it. Today we're looking at one case in particular, or rather 4 cases which led to one. Our first began on the 9th of October 2009, when 35-year-old Jill Stacy Stuchenko disappeared from Prince George. Jill was reported missing by friends and family on the 22nd of that month, almost 2 weeks later. Jill was the mother of 5 children, all of whom were in state custody. As Jill, she was a sex worker and addicted to drugs, something she had tried time and time again to quit. But, like the tide, each time she washed out, she was pulled back in again. Despite her troubles, though, she was well liked. She was apparently, lovely to talk to and had a fabulous voice.
Well, just because you're addicted to drugs or you're a sex worker doesn't necessarily mean you can't be well liked. I mean, it's all about personality there, and that's something completely different.
So, her disappearing was frightening. Even more so when she was found. On the 26th of October, a passing hiker discovered half-buried remains in a gravel pit just outside of town. It was quickly determined she had died violently, suffering massive blunt force trauma blows to the back and side of the head and to the face. Almost a year later, on the 31st of October 2010, another woman vanished from Prince George. This time, it was 23-year-old Natasha Lynn Montgomery. She was last seen in the north end of town. She was leaving a friend's house, and she vanished into the night. She was a sex worker. Police would say she was leading a high-risk lifestyle, but it wasn't like her to not check in with her family. And they later contacted the RCMP and reported her missing. And then, as you can imagine, things went into overdrive. You had your whirlybirds, you had your tanks, Inspector fucking Clouseau! Nah, it was more like just keep an eye out, a few posters, and job well done. As usual, the family did all the heavy lifting. But she wouldn't be found. In fact, to this day, Natasha remains missing. It was over a week later that Cynthia Mass, 35 years old, she disappeared from Prince George once again. Cynthia, Cinderella she was known to her family as, disappeared on the 10th of September. She had become addicted to drugs, and with no escape from them. She ended up in an abusive relationship, pregnant, but escaped that and battled her addiction for the sake of her baby. A baby who was ultimately taken away, regardless. She was actually in the process of getting her child back, getting clean, when she disappeared.
And see, we're starting to see a pattern with the victims here. We have people who are addicted to drugs. 2 of the 3 were in a certain line of work. So once you start seeing the pattern, the cops should start linking that. But obviously it doesn't look like that happened in this case, which is absolutely terrible.
She vanished not too far from where Natasha did, in an area known to be frequented by sex workers just trying to get by. Cynthia was found on the 8th of October in L.C. Gun Park, on the other side of the Fraser River from Prince George. She, like Jill, had been beaten to death with some blunt weapon. Massive trauma blows to the head.
Another pattern. Come on, cops, do your job. I don't know how it works in Canada. Maybe they have different rules that they have to go by, but hopefully that wouldn't happen here, but I know it does.
In 2010, Lauren Leslie was 15 years old, growing up with one sister and one brother. She grew up with her mother in Vanderhoof, a town about an hour up the Highway of Tears from Prince George. She was great, she was kind, she was good in school. She was also legally blind. She had 25% vision in one eye, 50% in the other, but that didn't hold her back from her dream of becoming a forensic pathologist. And so, as she had difficulty seeing and she kind of lived in the middle of nowhere, she spent most of her day on her computer, online, chatting away with people from all over the world on all sorts of social media. And she was introduced to Nexopia, a Canadian social media site, kind of a message board type kind of dealio. Lauren, her username was Ba the Sheep, and there was a lot of creeps on Nexopia.
As you can tell, parents beware. What's that say? I'm pointing like you could see where I'm pointing. Ba the Sheep, newbie, female, 25. She's 15. She ain't no 25. Beware.
Definitely people that a young teenage girl should not be talking to. And that is where she met a user called One Country Boy. And so to skip ahead for a moment, it was on the 27th of November 2010 that Lauren decided to, during the day, go and meet up with someone for coffee, someone from Nexopia. It was that night, after midnight, that Lauren's father got a call from the RCMP, asking if he knew where Lauren was. The reason they'd called him was that they had found her identification in a pickup truck off an old logging road on Highway 27. What had happened that cold, November night was that an RCMP officer was just driving along at about 9:45 of the PM when he saw this 2004 pickup truck barreling down like an old logging road. The cop thought to himself, well, what's this all about? And it was weird as shit. So the officer pulled him over and saw the driver. Name of Cody Legibkov, 20 years old. Cody was covered in blood. So Cody, in response to the
So they got lucky. Wow.
obvious question, said to the officer,
All these people went missing. Links to all of them based on, well, maybe not the last one, based on their job and being addicted to drugs. And in the end, they got lucky finding the guy.
oh, what, this? Me and a friend, we just, we just clubbed a deer to death. As you do, this is deer blood.
I don't know if I'm getting the story right or not, but just tell me what went on tonight.
We were hunting deer.
If we run this blood, if we do a forensic match on it, we're going to find out it's deer blood, right?
I guess so, yeah.
You guess so.
If you're going to be a criminal, at least be a smart one. When they ask you a question, if we run this blood, is it going to be a deer blood? Don't say, I guess so. Say, yes, it's going to be deer blood. At least try.
It obviously is.
Okay. The officer thought that was odd. At the very least, he was a poacher, so he called for backup. And the tracks of Cody's pickup were followed back into the woods, easy enough to follow in the snow. And there they would eventually find the lifeless body of Lauren Leslie. Her pants were around her ankles, and her head had been bashed in. In the car, they found Lauren's backpack with her ID, Lauren Toes, which is Lauren's mother's maiden name. They also found her phone, a pipe wrench, and a knife, covered in blood. At 12:07, Cody Allen Legibikoff was arrested and charged with murder. The only person at that point Cody wanted to talk to was his dad.
Lawyer up. I don't care if you're innocent. And they say, well, innocent people don't get lawyers. No, yes, they do. Lawyer up. At least here in the United States, if you're ever taken in for questioning or for anything, I want to speak to my lawyer. That's it.
The time now is 0015 hours on the 28th of November 2010. I'm arresting you for the murder of Lauren Dawn Toes. I am investigating a murder,
But I did not murder anybody. I don't know why I'm in here.
I told you, you're under arrest for murder.
I did not murder anybody. I want to call my dad.
You have the right to call a lawyer right now. How old are you? You're an
I want
adult?
to call my dad.
You're an adult? So you have a right to call a lawyer right now. Do you want to call a lawyer?
I want to call my dad.
Lawyer up.
Daddy, get me out of this. What Cody said had happened was, that his story was true. Him and his friend had killed a deer. The reason they couldn't find a deer body was that Cody's friend, who, the deer, he had gone and picked up he dumped a body. That's why he wasn't around. He had gone off with the body. As you do. But Cody said he had actually found Lauren's body. They'd killed a deer, beaten it to death, and then he stumbled across Lauren's body. He was like, oh shit. He didn't kill her, though. He just saw her body. And then...
Now that would be one heck of a coincidence. I'm just going to say that much. To have been killing a deer, come across a dead body, have blood all over you, arrested, and they find would be one heck of a coincidence. But that's why you need a lawyer up if it is.
Today's date is the 28th of November, 2010. Signed Durham County, 4753. Currently taking out the Cody Legibikoff.
There are some circumstances which led us to put you into custody for the murder of a young girl, 15-year-old girl. Right. If this is the case where there's some explanation here, I'm willing to listen to you.
No, he's not. Don't fall for it. Do not fall for it. The next words out of your mouth, Cody. Cody, listen to me, Cody. I want my lawyer.
Yeah, there is. I had found her there. And I got scared. And I seen it.
What did he say?
And I got scared. I had found her there. And I got scared. I had found her there.
I had something, and I got scared. I don't know what that word was.
And I got scared. And I seen it. Seen her stuff lying on the ground. And yeah, I decided to take off. It's like, fuck this. I'm calling it extremely bad timing. I'm not gonna be saying anything else. Just so.
I want my lawyer.
Just so you know.
When I hear a story like this, man, it's a horrible thing to have happen to a person with your girl.
Of course.
Yeah. What kind of person would do something like that?
I know.
I'm asking you, what kind of person do you think would do something like that?
Obviously, not a good person.
Yeah, it's kind of tough to wrap your head around, eh?
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything that would motivate a person to do something like that? What would cause a person to do that?
Well, I don't know.
Real quick, this video is sponsored by the coldest water bottle. Use code word HOT. Click the link down in the description. Use the code word HOT for up to 10% off. please use it. You'll not regret it.
Cody was 20 years old, living in Prince George with his girlfriend, and he worked as a mechanic at a car dealership in town, the Ford dealership in town. He had no history of crime and had never once popped up on the police radar before. He grew up in a hunting town, Fort St. James, a small town on Stewart Lake, about 2 hours northwest of Prince George. And unlike so many killers that we see, serial or otherwise, Cody has no moments in his childhood that, that's why he is the way he is. There's nothing in his past where you can kind of point the finger and say, oh, that's why he's a fucking monster. He was a perfectly normal kid. He hunted, he fished, he was close with his family. He had a girlfriend, he had a good job, he did all his schooling. He was athletic, he was into sports, he was into clubs. Everyone who knew him either liked him or didn't have a problem with him.
Everyone we've spoken to about the young man here in Fort St. James says they didn't see it coming.
When my friend told me it was Cody, our friend and stuff, and I couldn't believe it either. I was like, oh my God, that was Cody, because it's from your own town, right? So that's when you're like, this is unbelievable.
His reputation at this school was as a popular athlete. He was into country music and dirt biking, played minor hockey and soccer.
He attended all the family events, and every single member of that family would be shocked that 3 more counts of murder would be levied against Cody Allen Legebokoff. Cody was linked swiftly to Lauren's murder. Well, besides what they already had when they went through his phone. They had conversations between them on Nextopia.
Yeah, no, not a case of bad timing. A case of you killed people, you go to jail.
And via text message. And they painted a clear picture. Cody would eventually change his story again, saying that, oh no, they had known each other, they were friends, he had picked her up from school, and then he had driven her into the forest, they had sex, and then...
Oh, so you're just a pedophile then? Okay.
She just lost it. She started beating herself up, punching herself with her fist, then she grabbed a pipe wrench out of his car, whacking herself, and then she grabbed a knife and stabbed herself to death. OMG. Cody would say, okay, he did hit her, but that was just to finish her off. Mercy killing, really. He's the good guy here. He did her a favor.
I knew she was hitting herself. And I was more stunned and in awe. And at the end of it, I was just like, what the is going on here?
Lauren Leslie had actually been suffering from depression. She'd been diagnosed with it. And so she presumably told Cody while they were chatting over Nexopia. And so I guess when Cody, found that out, he was like, well, putting that one in the back pocket, that'll come in handy. Oh yeah, she was depressed. She killed herself. Oh wow. The messages, though, said otherwise, to what he was saying. He was sending her all this sexual shit all the time. She was a child. She was not into it at all.
Right.
She just wanted to hang out. Cody had other intentions. He had picked her up from school, driven her into woods, and then did what he did, and the evidence on him, around him, spoke, for itself. And when they searched his home in downtown Prince George, they found a shitload more.
I don't know. To be a person that doesn't have any kind of history of being in trouble with the police, no abuse, no nothing. This dude is genuinely a psychopath.
There was blood everywhere in his apartment in downtown Prince George. This is like that fucking Adam Strong bastard all over again. Jill's blood was on his couch, saturated. Cody had also moved after she was killed, and when the police searched his older basement apartment, they found more of Jill's blood soaked into the carpet. He had taken her back to his apartment when his roommates were away and killed her. The shorts Cody was wearing when he was arrested for Lauren's murder, they were tested and Natasha's blood was on them. Also on sheets in his bed and the carpet and in the bathroom. Also on the handle of an axe. She's still never been found, but she was likely chopped up and disposed of. And Cynthia, her blood was on his shoes and on a pickaxe in his apartment. Not good for Cody, but they solved 3 more murders, and he was charged with all of them.
Good. Death sentence.
In Prince George.
I don't know. Again, I don't know if Canada has the death sentence, but if they do, people like him deserve it. Absolutely no reason, no rhyme. He just did it to do it, and that's the kind of guy that will not change. And that's the kind of guy that needs to be.
Today, the start of a distressing trial involving the murders of multiple women. 23-year-old Cody Lejabokov is charged with first-degree murder, accused of killing 4 women in separate incidents in 2009 and 2010. Kirk Williams has more on what the Crown alleged in its opening statement.
The Crown outlined its reasons to the jury why Cody Lejabokov has been charged.
That's interesting that they call the prosecution the Crown. We call it the state or the government here. It's just interesting. Yeah, kind of cool, to be honest.
With 4 counts of first-degree murder. It paints a very different picture from the fresh-faced young mechanic seen in pictures. The Crown says that he regularly used cocaine and got that cocaine from sex trade workers. Jiryl Stuchenko was found in a gravel pit. Cynthia Mays was found near Prince George. However, Natasha Montgomery's body was never found. The Crown says that forensic evidence will link Lejabokov to the crimes through DNA samples of the victims on his clothing, tools, vehicle, and his apartment furniture. The 4th victim, 15-year-old Lauren Leslie, was different. The Crown says they met online on Nexopia, and they agreed to meet.
Cody went on trial in June 2014. It seems that when he wasn't being a good little boy with his fiancée, he was getting high, doing the devil's dandruff. In fact, crack...
I've never heard it called that. That's interesting. Now, I've heard the devil's lettuce, but I haven't heard the devil's dandruff. I'm going to keep that.
Pipes were found in his car when he was arrested. 2 of them. And that's probably what brought him into contact with Jill, Natasha, and Cynthia. Lauren, he found her on his own. During the trial, his defense attorney, when Cody took the stand, and he did take the stand, his defense attorney tried valiantly to elicit some kind of regret, some kind of sadness out of Cody at what he had done. About what had happened. Good luck! Was he able to?
No.
Was he fucked? No, you have to be human to feel emotion and feel guilt or anything like that. Cody, it appears, doesn't qualify. He never expressed regret, guilt, sadness over the 4 lives he had ended, and of course he refused to take responsibility. He said not guilty to all of them. So why would he feel guilty? He told the jury that while he'd been present for every death, every murder, he hadn't done any of them, though. He'd just been there. Okay, well, he said, Lauren, she killed herself, apparently. He just put her out of her misery. And Jill, Natasha, and Cynthia, well, others had killed them. Okay, he had been partying with them. They were sex workers, so they'd gone back to his place. And then he said, well, some drug dealers and their acquaintances had showed up. Mr. X, Y, and Z. And they killed them. He refused to name them or, give the police anything about who these mystery men were. He would always just say Mr. X, Y, and Z. The reason he wouldn't name them
is they didn't have any names. They weren't real.
Was because he was like, well, listen, if you guys are going to falsely convict me, I don't want to be, I don't want to be a rat in prison. I'll get my head kicked in. So his excuse about these mystery men, these alphabet murderers, went down about as well as a wet fart. It was obvious as all hell what he was doing. He was convicted of 4 counts of first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison, though the 4 counts of murder were to run concurrently. So he really only got 1 count of murder. But that's no parole for 25 years.
See, that's crazy to me. That this sicko could be out on the streets in 25 years. If that... That's crazy.
And the judge highly recommended against giving any parole for Cody Lejabokov.
In handing down the sentence, Justice Glenn Parrott said there was no doubt in his mind all of the murders occurred while Lejabokov was committing or attempting to commit a sexual assault on his victim. Justice Parrott picked apart Lejabokov's testimony, identifying numerous holes in his story and calling his tale of drug dealers X, Y, and Z a fabrication. With his throat choking in a rare show of emotion, Justice Parrott paused to control himself while discussing the grief witnessed through the victim impact statements. These are not the actions of a simple killer, he said, but of something infinitely worse.
Which deserves the death penalty. Look, a lot of people have a lot of different views on the death penalty, but you can't tell me that this is not a guy that deserves it, that this is a guy that deserves to be out possibly in 25 years. Come on now. You ain't going to make that case to me. Nah. And I'm a defense-minded person, but you ain't making that case to me.
You know, there's all kinds of really, really gory, hoary movies out there. They don't even come close to what this guy's done. Mm-hmm. You know, like, what is he?
And so ends the tale of Cody Lejbakov, Canada's youngest serial killer. He got the coveted title. Good for him. You know, we cover a lot of Canadian serial killers, and they're all really weird. And here's another one. And though he was responsible for some heinous murders, there's a lot more along that highway which remain unsolved, and I'll get to them. Weird for Cody. Normal kid, you know, seems that, well, I guess he wasn't after all. Odd how someone who, you know, grew up so perfectly fine with no issues could end up doing what he did with no reason whatsoever. And the police never released the motive for what Cody was doing. Usually, you know, there's some kind of inciting incident, right? Their first murder, and then they get hooked on it. It's like, seems like there's nothing for Cody. He just was a monster. Cody Lejbakov? More like Cody, would you fuck off? Thank you so much for watching.
That's crazy. Anyways, y'all, if you like this video, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If not, you can give it a thumbs down. Not going to hurt my feelings, so you can give it a thumbs up because it's not going to hurt yours. If you're new or you haven't yet, please do consider subscribing. It really does help out the channel. We are currently on our way to 50,000 subscribers, which is absolutely insane to me. I hope each and every one of y'all have an absolutely fantastic day. And as always, until next time, YouTube, smile like you mean it. From the Bushy Beard.